Explorer, you've arrived at the threshold of an epic journey where self-love meets fitness. Gather your courage as we seek to challenge the limits of our bodies, become mentally resilient, and learn to cherish ourselves for the beautiful individuals we are. Along the way, we'll be joined by incredible mentors in the pole and fitness community who will share their wealth of knowledge to help you blossom. This is the Pole Adventures podcast, and your adventure starts now. Welcome, explorers, to another episode of Pole Adventures. I am your host, Paris, an eternally struggling pole dancer, here to bring you the wisdom of Stacey Shapiro. Stacey spent the last 12 years helping people heal their relationship with food and build healthier, stronger lives as an accomplished personal trainer, bodybuilder, and meal prep company owner. So there's no better expert than Stacey to guide us through using nutritional health to build up your pole strength. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you, Paris.
I'd love for you to tell us a bit about your pole adventure in general. Like, what was your why for doing pole?
Yeah, so I started pole dancing. Actually, my mom got me into pole dancing. So she is an aerialist, and so I grew up with these back in my backyard. I didn't.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it is. It was. Well, I didn't realize how cool it was until I became an adult, and I was like, man,
yeah.
Really cool.
You just get to fly around as a monkey.
Yeah, you don't appreciate those kinds of things when you're around them as a kid, and then you grow up. And, but I was going to art school, and I was not really not really, I guess, into the idea of working out. I really didn't like going to the gym, and so when it was just kind of like it was, I just didn't really have. I guess there was no why when I started. It was more of my mom was like, you need to do something with your body. And you got to start getting out of this. I was not living the best lifestyle as an art kid, a lot of just kind of not going down the best path. And it wasn't the art itself. It was all the lifestyle that came with it. I was not treating my body well. And so she was like, okay, you got to do something. So she was like, you don't like the gym. Why don't you, go to this pole class? And at the time I was 17 years old. And I was like, okay, of course. And immediately when I walked into that pole class, first of all, I was underage. I was just crossing my fingers. They were not going to find out that I was under the age of 18 because I was too young
to be over 18
in the United States at the time, because that was in 2009. So at the time there was only one pole studio, and it was very, you did have to be. I think it was the time
more like for stripping.
Yeah. So I was just hoping they weren't going to see that I was under. They weren't going to ask for an ID or anything like that. Which thankfully, I guess I looked older than I was. And so when I walked in there, I just remember just seeing all of these extremely strong, powerful women, and I was like, oh my God, how can I do that? And they were all doing tricks, and it was just this kind of eye-opening moment. And so from there, it took me down this whole different path that I never thought I was going to go down. But it really made me, I guess my why, it was just kind of it really helped me develop a sense of strength within myself. And it wasn't just physical strength, it was emotional strength as well. It was just this whole different idea of who I was as a human being. Because I would say before I walked into pole, my confidence was not the best. I definitely, of reflects in how you treat your body, right? I wasn't treating my body very well. I wasn't really doing a lot that really benefited me as a human being. And it was starting to show. And obviously my mom was like, okay, we gotta start, pushing you in another direction. Otherwise we're not gonna, getting into your adulthood. That's not gonna be a good time for you. But yeah, so it was more about developing that kind of just strength within myself. And that became just kind of snowballed into now what I do today. And now I help other people do. So yeah, I guess that's my why.
Do you think that kind of rescued you from that path?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. And it was not, I don't really talk about this, but it was a lot of underage drugs and drinking and all that stuff, and not putting yourself in very safe situations as the
usual teenager.
Yeah, if you've seen the movie 13, that was my life. So it wasn't, it was just kind of risky behavior as a young kid that could have led to that, not the best lifestyle getting older. So yeah, I would definitely say pole was the one thing that kind of like clicked, made me really start to appreciate who I was as an individual and help me build confidence within myself and really start to learn my strengths. And, it also brought me into a whole different community of human beings that made, I was like, you guys are like, I love the pole community. It's amazing. And it really just, I feel like it was like your community
makes very welcoming.
So welcoming, and just it made such a big difference in just how I felt about myself. And I was like, okay, this is what I want other people to feel this way, because it's so powerful.
Yeah. So now you're an amazing pole dancer, but for our beginners, what do you have like an embarrassing pole moment to share?
Probably many. Let's see. I'm trying to think of like embarrassing pole moments. I mean, I've had a lot of, wardrobe malfunctions while on stage. That was,
oh no.
Not testing out my costumes prior to performing has been a big one, where it's like all of a sudden there's nip slip, or like there's everything's coming out right there. And you get it on video. Okay, cool. So I would say, those are kind of. Do you
stop to like fix it or just keep going?
It depends. Yes. For the most part, if it's like, it depends on the environment, but sometimes, otherwise, I try and work through it. But yeah, I will say an embarrassing. So I worked as a pole go-go dancer in my early 20s. This was when
go-go. What's it?
Yes. Yeah. So like DJs in nightclubs would hire performers basically as aerial artists. And I worked for a company, and I was hired on a weekly basis to work in this nightclub. And they had giant poles. And so I would perform there on the weekends. And this is when I was kind of getting into pole, and it was how I ended up it was my first like real professional gig as a pole dancer. And this was probably 10 years ago, but there would be a lot of really drunk people there. And go up on, is in the VIP section, but I would go up to the top, and a lot of times like there would be security, but there would be people crowding at the bottom, and they were always very drunk, and some of the girls would start dancing around. And I remember one time coming down, and I needed to get down, but she was so drunk. I came down on her head, and she didn't even realize I was standing on her head. And it was like this holy shit. I just like basically fall onto a human being that had no idea I was there. So I would say like that was kind of one of those moments.
Were you doing like a drop?
It was like a drop. Yeah. I just kind of like slid down, and she was right there. I was like, I don't know how she was the next morning, but yeah, security just like whisked her away. Her friends had to like drag her off the stage.
You didn't know her out, did you?
I think she was too intoxicated. I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, I would say those were like besides the wardrobe malfunction, which unfortunately has happened more than once. I would say that moment.
At the top or the bottom?
It's happened both times. It actually just happened recently at a performance where I thought these bottoms were really cute, and I was doing like it was something super not even crazy. It was just like maybe an invert or something. And I came down, and it was just like up my everything. It was for the showcase at the studio. So it wasn't a big, like huge, it wasn't at a competition or anything, but the video recording of me was not very pretty. And I was like, please don't do this right now. No. Nobody needs to see this. This is really embarrassing. Or at least that part. So yeah, those are a handful of moments, but then the one moment when I was performing, probably when I accidentally smashed somebody coming down on the pole.
It happens to everyone.
Yeah. So, so I would say those two moments come to mind. You have many I'd say embarrassing moments too. There's a lot of falls that have happened.
Just general.
Oh my gosh, poles coming down from the ceiling because March is my pole anniversary. So it'd be 14 years in March that I've been pole dancing. And
a long time.
Yeah, I've moved so many times. So sometimes the tension mounted poles, they just fall from the ceiling and you end up, I'm like, all of these could end up on pole LOLs because you just do that quick. Oh my gosh, are you okay? Did I break a window? Did I break a, TV? And thankfully, no serious harm has happened, but there's been a lot of scary instances where the pole has
That's good
as well. Yeah. Yeah.
So getting to the topic, I personally just struggle with, both the fitness and nutrition side at the same time. So, how would you go about wrangling both of them when none of it's easy?
Yeah. So my background is in health and nutrition. So I have my degree in community health science, and then with a minor in nutrition. So that was kind of like when I decided to finish. I was going to art school, and then I decided, okay, once I got into pole, I really loved health. But during that same time, I started doing CrossFit and bodybuilding, and that kind of took me into this whole world of understanding nutrition. And initially it wasn't I would say I was super restrictive and it wasn't healthy. It was very much on the path of orthorexia and just disordered eating and not eating in a way that was actually nourishing my body, even though I was eating healthy. It was to the extreme healthy. And so when oh yeah, it's super common, especially if you have really strict goals. It's really, it can get really,
you can succeed too much.
Yeah. And it really impacts your mental health. And so when I was doing bodybuilding, I was also doing pole dancing, and the diets are really strict. And it wasn't really beneficial to my performance, right? So even though I was, eating really healthy, if you want to call it that, it wasn't beneficial to me having energy. It wasn't beneficial to me feeling good up in the air. It wasn't beneficial to me feeling happy. I was really angry all the time. I was a mega
angry.
I was hangry all the time. So, so that was many years in the making of me trying to kind of battle this understanding of what balance looked like for me. And then also balancing, how much I wanted to lift in the gym versus how much I wanted to pole dance, and just it was a lot of balancing. And it took me many, many years to actually figure that out personally myself. And a big part of that was when I just like to do extreme things. I just I get a high from doing extreme things and pushing my body to the extreme. So I didn't. Well, I didn't really know how to slow down, and it was a problem. And so the problem was the slowing down part and understanding what that looked like. So when I was, I moved to San Diego about 7 years ago in California. And then when I moved over here, I decided to open a meal prep company because I was I want to teach other people how to, eat well. But that was kind of it almost forced me to stop thinking so hard about what I was doing for myself, and actually kind of forced me into this idea of balance where I couldn't just solely focus on myself. I had to focus on other people and not just.
That's a really good technique. Just spotlight other people. And then you're oh,
yeah. Right. And, I had been doing personal training and coaching in the past, but it was really hard to, I feel give them good tips on how to be balanced and, well nourished when I wasn't doing it myself. If you don't practice what you preach, it's really hard to be that person to tell somebody what, how they should or shouldn't, be treating their bodies. So because I wasn't doing that for myself. So when I had, opened this meal prep company, I was, making meals for thousands of people, and it was crazy. And I had a whole staff that I had to worry about. And I really didn't have the time to focus on myself. And so it really took a toll on kind of my mental health again. And a lot of this has to do with mental health. And then when I put that to rest, when I decided to kind of start doing things online with people and teaching people how to do this in a way that was sustainable, not just a short-term thing, it was all of the many years of different experiences. And I think like getting a little bit older helped too. Cause I was like, okay, my body is not as resilient as it used to be. Like I need to kind of understand that I can't just sleep when I'm dead. I have to prioritize recovery and all this stuff. It really allowed me to kind of come to terms with, okay, this is how, I need to treat myself. And this is how I need to teach other people. Okay, if you're going to be doing, X amount of activity on the pole, right? If you're going to be training for a competition, you can't eat 1,200 calories and expect, your body to perform well. You have to learn how to nourish yourself. You have to learn how to take rest days. You have to learn how to recover. And then you have to also build strength so you don't injure yourself in the process. And that's where the cross training comes in. And it all was just kind of a big mixing pot of all of my life experiences. And then all of a sudden it was like, I don't know. I think it was just time. It was one of those things where it's like, it wasn't a fast thing that I learned. It was over time of the very crazy different experiences that I put my body through and my like just life that happened through life. And then I thought it was, I think it's really valuable to experience something. So when then you're coaching somebody, it's not just something that you read in a book. It's something that you've worked with people on or have actually experienced yourself. And I always tell people, I'm so glad that, if you've been working with me for X amount of years, like, thank you for trusting me and continuing to grow with me. Cause I feel like there's a lot of growth in that process too, as a coach or as a human being. And I think that also helps with understanding how to work in that balance, and balance looks different for everybody. So.
So would you have any specific tips on how to balance it all?
Yeah. Well, first find the thing that you love to do, and then find the thing that maybe you avoid doing, but is probably good for you. So for example, if you really, really love, actually Paris, what kind of pole do you really love? What kind of, this is a good kind of way.
Oh no. Sorry, what did you say?
What's your preferred style of pole dancing? Like if you could take any class, what would you choose? Which kind of class would you take?
I don't know if I'm like experienced enough to choose a different specific style, but
like a dance class? Would it be like a dance class, or would it be like a tricks class, or would it be I don't know.
Probably tricks.
Tricks class? Okay, so say you want to like take tricks classes and you want to do that like every single day of the week, right? You know that you have to do some sort of kind of tiers in terms of how intense each training session is going to go, because you can't do the same intensity of tricks every single day and expect your body to feel good the day after, right? So if you want to, so for people who are trying to balance it all and do it all, and, I would say definitely find the thing you love first and prioritize that and be like, okay, this is what I want to get better at. So maybe that's a tricks class. Maybe it's like you're trying to learn how to do a butterfly. That's a trick that I know a lot of people, as they're kind of getting upside down, they aim to do. But then I would suggest, okay, so maybe pick the 2 days that you want to go all out in those tricks classes. Around those 2 days, pick 2 days that you're going to do something that's going to benefit your body. Maybe and this is your cross training days, right? This could be either like a yoga class. This could be like a strength training day. This could be a hike. It doesn't have to be, but like something that is
it doesn't have to be in the studio or at home.
Yeah. And I would even say it's going to be better if it's not in the studio, because you also want your brain to get a mental break too. It's not just a physical break, but it's a mental break. So you're not just focusing on the same thing, because then you can just like overanalyze and get really, really stressed out about that one thing. So give yourself like 2 days of things that you're doing that you also like, but are not just pole related, right? That gives you a little bit of sense of, okay, this is something different, but it's still stimulating my brain and my body. And then around that, making sure that you're actually sleeping through the night. You're actually not just staying up on TikTok all night.
I'm trying to rein my sleep in. it's hard.
Sleep is a big one. I'm like, sleep is the magic pill to make everything easy, which can be challenging. I definitely struggle with sleep. And then hydration is big for pole dancers. And then if you could do anything, is just focus on protein, especially for pole dancers, because as pole dancers, we use so much strength and stamina during our pole sessions. And even if you're like, oh, it was just a beginner class, I was like, but if your body is not used to what you're doing, like you're putting your body under more stress and
relative.
It is relative. And it's really, pole is one of the few activities that it really challenges not only your strength, but your endurance, your mobility, your flexibility. It's like basically everything in one little package. So if
it was surprising that at the very beginning, I'm like, oh, it's everything.
Yeah, it is. And people always talk, it's like your body takes a lot of time to adapt to that stimulus because it is stressful on your body. So in order to recover effectively, making sure that if like not even focusing on necessarily like changing your whole diet in a sense, or focusing on all of everything in your nutrition or changing everything, but just focusing on increasing your protein intake. If that's one thing I could tell people to kind of like help balance it all, increase your protein intake just a little bit to help support all of the activity that you're doing.
So. Yeah, I already eat a lot of protein, so I'm like, yay, but that doesn't help with anything else.
It probably helps more than you realize, and it does help with recovery, and then there's like that fine tuning as you start to progress, and you start to, I think, balance is going to look different as you go through phases of your pole journey too.
Yeah.
So.
Having to juggle all of that, would you have any strategies to help stay motivated and keep to your schedules or whatever you've set out for yourself?
Yeah, motivation is unreliable. I will say that, unfortunately.
Definitely.
I would say, and I say this because, getting through college, my dad would tell me, so you get degrees and you're still going to pass, right? If you get a passing grade, it's still okay. And that's what I use that's what I tell everybody who is struggling with finding motivation every single day. Like some days you're going to feel more motivated, but like, I don't know, other days it might be rainy and the weather might be crappy and you might just have you just might not sleep, and you might just have one of those days where it just is not one of those days that you want to go train. So I would say if you can stick to a schedule 70% of the time consistently, that's better than any motivation, because having
something
that
is better than nothing.
Exactly. So thinking about a little bit as opposed to trying to do it perfectly every single time. And I think we get stuck on having to be really perfect and always on it and always 100%, but your 100% is going to vary based off of the day, and it's going to vary based off of like your capacity as a human being. And unfortunately, we are not built to just only think about one thing all the time. And I would love to always think about pole and be super inspired with pole and just do all the cool pole things. But we have lives too and other priorities that will also take a priority in our life. And so I think if we can think about giving ourselves seasons and not necessarily thinking about feeling like we have to be motivated for everything all the time, but just trying to find a schedule that helps us be consistent. So for me, what I do is I will sign up for classes the day before, because then it pops up on my schedule. So I can't just like have it in my head. Yeah. So even if I'm not motivated, I know that if I signed up the day before, like the studio schedule is, you have a couple hours and then otherwise you get docked for the class if you late cancel. So a lot of studios are like that. So if you late cancel, that's your money. Yeah, it's a penalty and it's money. And then you don't look the best as a student. Like people are like, oh, she's not going to come to class. So that's one way that I would help. I would definitely suggest for helping with the consistency and the accountability, because it'll pop up. One thing that really helped me was just like spending money on a program, because if I invest my money in a program, I know I'm going to do it because I'm like, I spent the money. I might not be motivated, but I want to, use what I just bought. So, and I want to use the person that I'm working with. So, and that's what I do. I would much rather, so for CrossFit, that's my cross training of choice. I would much rather pay, $170 for a CrossFit membership as opposed to $25 for a gym membership that I probably would never, use, because I don't like working out by myself and it's not motivational. And it goes the same with pole classes too. I would rather spend the money, and it just helps me even if I'm not motivated, it helps me stay accountable. So
yeah, I went after my first class. I'm like, okay, I'm buying a membership, otherwise I'll never come back.
yeah. And sometimes it's just like, so if you can kind of like plan ahead and then, invest your time and effort and money, and also like having maybe like a buddy to kind of keep you accountable. I know like at the gyms, like we have, the students are all very, the studio that I coach in person, everybody's like everybody loves everybody. So like everybody's like friends with everybody too. So if somebody doesn't show up, like somebody else will text them, be like, hey, where are you? And it's just kind of having that like buddy system. It helps with motivation when you don't necessarily want to go to class, but then you're going to see your friends when you get there. Like that helps. So finding a space that you want to go is also really important. That's if anything for motivation. You might not feel motivated when you go there, but then you go to class and you're like, oh my gosh, everybody's awesome. I just want to do everything that they're doing.
Yeah. So would you have any, different things like diet wise for pole dancers specifically besides protein? Like would you pick a specific diet for pole dancers that besides protein or?
I think it's going to depend on the person. So we're all very bio-individual in our needs. I don't believe there's a one-size-fits-all approach to that. I think I guess my answer would be how you look at food in terms of your relationship with food and focusing on abundance as opposed to restriction. So focusing on what you can add to your nutrition to benefit your body as opposed to what do you have to take away. So for example, if you forget about breakfast in the morning, you have a small lunch, and then you kind of scrounge the cupboards and kind of find whatever for dinner, or you eat out for dinner. Let's say it could be like you forget about breakfast, you have a cup of coffee. For lunch, you might have like a sandwich that you just like grabbed on the street at a local deli or something. And then for lunch, you might do takeout. So it could be like, I don't know, sushi, right? You might not get a lot of vegetables, right? So one thing you could think about, okay, I'm already doing this. What can I do and what can I add to that? And I would just be like, okay, well, maybe have some vegetables to add some fiber. Maybe just have a little extra water. So instead of thinking about what do I have to change completely, thinking about small things that you can add on a regular basis. And that's going to look different for everybody. So I guess my best tip would be like, look at what you're already doing, see how you're feeling with what you're doing. So for example, I think sometimes skipping breakfast and then going right and kind of like to find whatever for lunch and not planning ahead. I don't know, you might be hungry, you might have brain fog, you might feel tired. A good way to think about preventing all that feeling is, okay, maybe I'll just have something quick for breakfast. So maybe it might be yogurt and berries. That's something quick that you don't have to cook. And that could be the one thing that you do and then start noticing how your body's feeling. And then as you go through, it's like, okay, how is this benefiting me? And if you start to feel better, you're going to do it more. So thinking about how food will help nourish you as opposed to why you have to take it away is going to like kind of just reframing your mindset around food is the best diet plan I'd say for anybody. Yeah.
I think that body awareness is also like super important, like how, like noting how you're feeling. Do you generally like encourage people to keep like a food diary or something?
Yeah. So when I work with people, I have like, it's like a spreadsheet and it's a Google form that every week they'll fill it out. And it's basically just kind of a little check-in where it's what was your mood like this week? What did you struggle with? Like, how are you feeling? How was your energy? How was your digestion? How did you feel pre and post workout? Like we talk about all those things because nutrition it's like kind of it's the foundation of everything else. It makes if we just kind of understand how to treat our bodies in terms of how we're fueling, because we all got to eat. Yeah, all got to eat some. Yeah. It's not like we're going to survive on nothing. So it's like, okay, how can we do it in a way that we get to eat all the food that we love, but we get to also eat the food that nourishes our body and makes us feel good in the way that, we perform in the air, because that's a lot of effort and it's a lot of energy that we're expending as we try and do all of the stuff on the pole.
So if there was just like, one thing that you could encourage every dancer to take away from your nutritional health and stuff like that, what would it be?
I think it would be to think about what you can add to your life. And it's for nutrition, for life, everything. I think abundance is kind of what I preach, and abundance in nutrition, abundance in how you can add to your strength, abundance in just like making you feel good. I'm all about kind of just like living your best life, and food helps you live your best life. And if you treat your body well, I feel like everything kind of falls into place. Obviously we have to work hard for that, but it makes it easier to appreciate the small things. So you can be grateful for those little things. But yeah, I guess my one takeaway would be like, think about food in terms of abundance. And if you're eating primarily a whole food diet, I always say 80 to 90% whole food, 10 to 20% soul food. So 80 to 90% of the food that, is the whole ingredients, that is good for you. But then you got 10 to 20% of that is going to be the food that just like makes your soul feel good. It's like the birthdays, the dates, the things that you're going out with friends, having those off nights where you just want to have a giant pizza or something like that. You got to find the balance of both.
What if your problem is abundance?
I think it's reframing what abundance looks like. So abundance in things that are going to benefit you. So abundance so maybe it's like, okay, right now you're thinking in terms of abundance of like eating all of the pizza, because I just talked about pizza. Maybe it's like, okay, maybe reeling, adding more of, I don't know, more fruit, so you're not as hungry for all the pizza, or, like trying to add more of something that is going to be a little bit more beneficial. And naturally the things that are not as like the habits that are not necessarily benefiting you as much are naturally just going to slowly get smaller and smaller. So it's kind of a reframing of what that abundance looks like.
Not more pizza, yay.
I would say that's self-awareness. That's also self-awareness.
Yeah, I heard you had, a bunch of like programs to help people with this, like creative conditioning and, your co-coaching. Would you like to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. So I do online conditioning courses with pole dancers. So basically what I do is I teach pole dancers through, virtual coaching and online programs, how to get stronger through strength and nutrition. So creative conditioning is specific to building strength, conditioning on the pole and off the pole. So we do strength training. So if you're like not sure how to strength train as a pole dancer, that would be the conditioning program that I would suggest. It's an 8-week program, and we meet up twice a week live. And you also get a program to follow. That's a self-paced virtual program as well. So it's kind of a hybrid program where we talk, in person twice a week, but also you have the self-paced program to go by. And then with my one-on-one coaching, that's where I focus specifically on my nutrition with my pole dancers. And that is where we get into the nitty gritty. I don't necessarily do any sort of cookie cutter. I don't do meal plans. We all do everything based off of the individual. So some people are a little bit more specific in their nutrition. Some people are a little bit more flexible. And so it's all really based off of what that person needs and what their goals are. And, we really just try and focus on making their lives better through nutrition, making them stronger. If they have goals to compete, that's kind of like fine tuning everything around that. So that's with the one-on-one nutrition. And then with the creative conditioning, also, I do have a free just 5-day course for all of my pole dancers. And that's just conditioning. And I'm like, everyone should take that because it's free. It's 5 days of free conditioning. And I definitely, I want to help pole dancers build a strong foundation so they can do everything that they want to on the pole.
Yeah. Awesome. Where could they find that?
You can find that on my website, staceyquinnnutrition.com, or Instagram. I'm primarily on Instagram. I feel like Instagram is kind of Stacey Q Shapiro, is kind of my place that I hang out the most.
Yeah, awesome. So you make sure to go check that out, guys, and follow her on Instagram and everything. And Stacey, thank you so much for being our guide on nutrition and strength building and everything that we talked about today. And thanks everyone for tuning in. So yeah, we've reached the end of our adventure for today. So until next time, Remember to stay strong, keep pushing your limits, and embrace your individual journey.
Don't forget to grab your free access to the Pole Adventures Compendium, a collection of incredible resources to help you progress on your pole journey. And if you enjoyed today's adventure, make sure to leave a review so other explorers can embark on the journey with us. This is the Pole Adventures podcast, and your next adventure awaits.